Michael Skubik, founder and distiller at Old Harbor Distilling Company. I was one of the co-founders of Hess Brewing Company, did that for almost 4 years. Then at one point we were making a barrel-aged stout as a collaboration with Urban Pizza in North Park. I decided that I liked the whiskey rather than the beer better, and at that point I started looking at if it was a possibility to start a distillery. So I went to Portland, I went to Seattle, traveled around, visited a bunch of different distilleries and saw what they're doing, how they're doing it, and I realized, yeah, it is possible. They're doing it on pretty small scales, and some of them being fairly successful. So I decided to start writing a business plan. That was back in 2011, and from there I eventually found this space in East Village, and that's when I left Hess, which was in 2012, late 2012. So I've been working on the distillery project for over 2 years now, and we finally just started distribution last week. So it took a little while to get started, but now we're doing it. So.
What made you pick East Village in general?
So I chose East Village because it's the next, well, it's pretty much the next spot available for growth in San Diego, especially downtown San Diego. All of western downtown, like Marina and Gaslamp and Cortez, all that stuff's Little Italy. It's pretty much built out. East Village, there's a lot of room for growth, and there's a lot of growth happening here. There's a lot of growth planned back in 2007, but a lot of that fell apart when the economy fell apart. Now it's finally starting to pick up again. We have a 45-story high-rise going in a block away, the cool restaurant attached to it. And I just feel like East Village will be the fun place to be, and I want to be a part of the transition from kind of, not the ghetto, but not the nicest place in the world, to a cool place to come, gentrify it and help it be a fun place to hang out. So, yeah.
So you were saying something about gentrification and activating the corner. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess one of the reasons I've always felt that I wanted to open up in an area like this was Brooklyn Brewery in New York. They started back in 1990, early 90s, I forget the exact year, but they moved into Brooklyn when it was still very sketchy to open up a business in Brooklyn. Can't say 100% of the reason Brooklyn's awesome is because of them, but they definitely didn't hurt. And having like a cool business in an area that's kind of not being used is going to help versus just an empty building. So the East Village Association, it's our local business improvement district type of thing. They call it activating the corner, when you have like a business come in that actually has like consumers coming in on a daily basis. So we're not quite there yet. We just opened up, so we're just doing like scheduled tours, but eventually, hopefully, if we ever get the laws changed, we'll be like a cool place to hang out. Right now we can only do 6 square ounce tasters, and so it's not as, there's not as big an incentive for me to open up on a regular basis because I'm not going to make as much money as if I can do cocktails and bottle sales. But I want to help this neighborhood, so that's why I moved here, because I can see that's the way things are going. In other states like Oregon and Washington, New York, Texas, Colorado, Hawaii, you can make cocktails on premise and you can sell bottles to go at your distillery, just like breweries and wineries can. In California, we can only do 6 square ounce tastes, which are actually only even allowed as of last year. It took however many years it's been since Prohibition, quite a few. I think, is it 80? We just were allowed to give tastes out in distilleries in California as of this year. We got a lot changed last year. So it's been tough because that means we can't make nearly as much on the product as we can in other states, or we could in other states. So we have to sell a distributor who sells to a bar or a restaurant or liquor store. We just have to only do production, which is fine. It makes us be a better business because we can't just make a ton of money at the bar, but it's definitely more difficult to keep the place profitable. So.
Can you talk more about like California laws and some of the zoning laws?
Yeah. So opening a distillery isn't much different than opening a brewery or a winery from a zoning perspective. The difficult aspect is the fire code, and that's a very expensive and lengthy process to figure out how to open up a distillery, especially in a downtown area, because pretty much every part of San Diego, like downtown has its own fire code. East County, like unincorporated, has its own fire code. North County has its own fire code. So wherever you're opening up, you have to go find like an expert in the field to interpret the codes that are in your area in order to open up. So it's not cheap, and it can take quite a while. And there's not the codes are fairly vague, especially when it comes to distilleries, because it wasn't something that the codes anticipated, obviously. The one benefit is that wineries legislated in that we can, anything that goes into barrels is considered like non-flammable. So that's one of the good things about having wineries be a big powerhouse in California for the last 50 or so years. So it makes it easier to at least have whiskey storage in our facility and rum storage in our facility. Yeah.
Where do you get most of your products?
Most of our products, well, most of our like base ingredients, just depends. So for our gin, we get the majority of our botanicals from Susie's farm. We get a few from Staley Farm, another local farm. Just depends on what's in season, where, and what we want. But yeah, a lot of our stuff for the gin specifically comes from Susie's farm, which is down in Imperial Beach. We go down there the day we're going to distill it and pick some cilantro, cucumber, sage, whatever we want, and bring it up to the still and macerate it, and then distill it the next day. And then other things like grain, you can't really get that in California, unfortunately. There's a few places that grow a little bit of grain, like wheat, but for the majority, if you're getting barley or something like that for whiskey, you're getting it from the Midwest, where they grow it. But we are going to be doing eau de vies and things like that using locally grown fruits. So that'll be a fun thing, like Carlsbad strawberries and locally grown fruits as well. So that'll be a future plan. But for now, we're just doing like the locally grown stuff for the gin, which is cool. Try to keep it local as much as we can.
So since Susie's farm is located down in Imperial Beach, do you
Yeah.
see it as a positive for National City or Distilling to be moving in there?
San Diego in general.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego is probably the greatest place in the world in terms of like growing produce. So if you're using anything that's grown in San Diego, obviously that's a benefit to being located in San Diego. So yeah, it's definitely, not negative, that's for sure. It's very positive. Yeah.
So when we were on our tour, you talked about taking craft beer and making it into this.
Do a distillate?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a project we're working on right now. So since I come from the beer industry, I have a lot of brewer friends and a lot of beer nerd friends, so I'm going to be doing a product that is geared towards them, like hopheads, and it's going to be a beer-based liqueur, essentially. So it's going to be a rolling product, so it'll be with like different breweries throughout the year. We're still working on that one. We need to get formulas approved on it, but it's going to be a fun one. Every batch will be different. Like it might be an IPA one month and then like a stout the next month, and so. But nothing else like on the market. So we'll see. Hopefully people like it. It's a passion project. I don't expect to make a ton of money on it, but it could turn into something cool. You never know. So yeah, it's a fun thing about being the owner is I can do whatever